Hey, Jeff Durkin with We Are Change Connecticut out here in Maryland, and we're joined by whistleblower and activist and author Susan Lindauer. Susan, we talked about a lot of different subjects before in our previous interviews. Now this one is related to an important issue with Iraq and how it's building up again, and the background on ISIS and how that's an influence compared to the other conflicts with Syria, and now it's going over to Iraq. What's your take on that and your perspective on what's going on with ISIS in Iraq?
Well, my perspective is a little bit unusual because I was the chief CIA asset covering Iraq at the United Nations from 1996 right up to the invasion for 7 years. And I was involved in Iraqi pre-war intelligence. What we're seeing today with ISIS, it was predicted by myself and others in the run-up to the war. Of course, as you know, I was, when the Bush administration decided to rewrite the history books on Iraqi pre-war intelligence and decided that they lacked the courage and conviction to take responsibility for their actions, I was arrested on the Patriot Act and held under indictment for 5 years, denied a trial, thrown in prison on Carswell Air Force Base for a year, while the government desperately sought to shut me up so that they could reinvent the stories of what we had done in pre-war intelligence. But in fact, we forecast that the Iraqi exiles would be deeply reviled and despised, and that they would find no political support within the country, and that it would result in a short-term gain where the United States would impose a puppet government, but the puppet government would have no local basis of support. And then in the aftermath, there would have to be a purge. And we did not necessarily see this on Sunni Shiite lines, but we saw it in terms of Iran's influence, and the push for Iranian influence would spill over into Iraq, and that would be a destabilizing factor as the pro-Iraqi nationalists who had once been favored by Saddam, which would be the Sunnis, collided with the Iranian ambitions, Iran being a strong, stable regional force, and Iraq then being destabilized. So we forecast this in quite accurately, tragically. And also, I would add that we forecast that it would become a regional war. This was very emphatically stated that that it would have to be that it would explode out of Iraq, and that it would become a region-wide war that would take up because we'd had 15 years. We could see this with 15 years of violence between Lebanon and Israel and the Palestinians, and the great wounds that had been caused there, Syria, and all the tensions between these groups, that a region-wide war would ensue. And unfortunately, I believe very strongly that this war will, that in the next 6 months, we're going to see Lebanon and Jordan fall. Lebanon is going, we're already hearing, and I've been saying, I've known this for months, but, you know, that you should have heard this on CNN and Fox News already, but they're not telling you. There's so much that you're not being told. It's a true blowback situation. Lebanon, the tension created in Lebanon with the Hezbollah fighters and the Palestinians, the ISIS is recruiting heavily in the Palestinian camps all through southern Turkey, the Gaza, the West Bank, and Jordan and Lebanon. They're recruiting throughout that area. There are 6 million people who are potential targets for ISIS in those camps in the Palestinian state alone, and they're going after them very aggressively and have been for a long time. This has been going on for about 18 months already, that ISIS has already been in contact, pushing them, building bridges inside the Palestinian camps to build its support base. And what they're promising is that they're going to take out Israel. And so for those of us, now I am not a pro-Israeli pro-Zionist person. I am strictly anti-war and anti-violence, and I am gravely concerned about, like everyone now, gravely concerned about the military crisis that ISIS has promulgated. But we have anticipated that if anybody could see, anybody watching the real events on the ground would know that this has been coming. And so, as I've been talking on RT television and in doing my radio shows, we've been discussing the problems that were going to that had to surface eventually, that were inevitably coming. They cannot be avoided. Once we started the war in Syria, and once Hezbollah jumped in to protect Assad, and once a year ago when the first bombings in Beirut occurred, as the war filtered back, the writing was on the wall that this would happen. And so we are now expecting a war against Israel. And I will go on record saying that right now. We expect that Lebanon is going to fall rapidly. Lebanon is explosive. So Iraq is falling. Syria has fallen. Lebanon is the next to go, like in the next 30 to 60 days. And then in the next 6 months, Jordan will fall. And when all of those, because the Jordanians, Americans don't realize, have a very strong Palestinian population. None of these people have jobs. None of them have local political rights in the country. And they're all they have nothing to lose by pursuing war. And so this region-wide war, and we know that ISIS, Americans are ignorant of what ISIS's true motivation is. Yes, it is to become a Sunni, an Islamic caliphate. That is true. That is their intention. But the Islamic caliphate has a destination. The capital of the Islamic caliphate is Jerusalem. And it has always been Jerusalem. And the reason that they're targeting Syria so aggressively is not that President Assad is a bad man. This is what's so stupid for the American people not to understand. President Assad is a secularist. He is modernity in Islam. He is contemporary. He is very open in his viewpoints. He refuses to impose Islamic Sharia. That is his crime. That's what they don't like about him, is that he's not rigid and controlled like they want him to be. And so, but the other part of it is what any real estate agent will tell you. Location, location, location. Syria is adjacent to Israel, attached by the Golan Heights, and anyone going after Israel has got to knock out Assad, President Assad, and knock out his forces, because Assad, above all, he is never pro-Israel. He is not pro-Israel. He is not. How can they be angry at him for that? He is not a sellout to Israel. However, he refuses, since he came into power 15 years ago, he refuses to allow Syria to be used as a launch point for attacks on Tel Aviv. He won't do it. He says, if you use my country as a launch pad against Tel Aviv, they're going to turn my country into a parking lot. I refuse to. I am protecting my people from jihad. And that's in their way. They have got to remove Assad in order for this to happen. So the rest of this talk that he's intolerant. No, he's very tolerant. He's everything that they don't want. He's someone who is secularist and modern, and he is anti-war with Israel. Not that he likes Israel, he doesn't, but he refuses to allow himself to be used as a base against Israel. And so when you see that, when you understand that key point, and you understand that what any real estate agent will tell you, location, 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 we're heading towards war with Israel.
And I think the difference, as you touched upon a little bit, is the ignorance with Not necessarily American people themselves, but the media and how now it's brought down to everybody else, like general consumption of the news, where it's always good versus bad. It can't be the middle or anything else like that. Instead of picking sides, Assad's a bad guy or this or that, and not looking at the broader picture, like you mentioned. And it kind of relates to, if you want to get into Syria and where ISIS originally came from, and then early on where the media came out and said, well, you know, we're going to give money to these people and they're rebels or freedom fighters, but they turn out to be the same force that we've been fighting in Iraq for that long. And then now is continuing into Iraq now, if you want to get into that, and how basically we're fighting and then funding funding Al-Qaeda in the same sense.
Well, the great tragedy, what is really frightening, is that the United States has been financing, training, and supplying ISIS with its military weapons. They've been working out of Jordan, which is going to backfire all over Jordan, because Jordan is the next country to go. After Lebanon's about to fall, then it will be Jordan. And when the United States, when the American people look back on this conflict, we will see what we saw with Al-Qaeda. We funded Al-Qaeda because we were taking on the Soviets, and then we were left with the machinery that we had created turning around and attacking us. And that is exactly what's happening now. We have been intellectually dishonest by not facing up to who they really want and what they're really doing over there. Yes, they want an Islamic caliphate, but we are creating this, we are financing and creating this monster. We are teaching this monster the tools of the trade. We're providing all the weapons and uniforms. We're even giving them our uniforms to wear. They're wearing our boots, made in the USA. I mean, that's kind of sick that they're gonna, and that we may have to send our soldiers over there to fight. And the question is, the real question is, what can we do now about this, because we have got to act rapidly. And if I could give anyone advice, and I hope that they'll take this to heart, we must immediately cut off all financing for these Syrian rebels. There's no such thing as a moderate Syrian rebel, because if you train one, they smile, they come in, they say, oh, I'm a moderate. Yeah, I'm a moderate. Sure I am. Just give me your weapons. And we hand them a machine gun. We hand them an anti-aircraft launcher, a rocket launcher, RPG, and that weapon that you give them today will be used against us tomorrow. And the other thing that we need to be concerned about is that there will be a false flag operation. There will be a false flag in the United States to draw us into a war with Israel. Israel will have to force that to happen, and ISIS may do it by themselves. ISIS may just take the bait and just go for it. But what will happen is that if ISIS does it, then the neocons and the hawks at the CIA who want to get into war with Israel will stand back, stand down, let it happen, even if ISIS really does it this time. Now, I'm not saying that 9/11 was a let it happen instead of make it happen. I'm not saying that at all. Don't get confused. 9/11 was an inside job, and that's a different picture. There were not 19 hijackers who organized 9/11, who did it. I am saying, however, that 15 years later, the ISIS crowd is far more sophisticated. They have money. They have financial support, declared financial support from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the Emirates, Qatar, and those countries can easily provide and now there's such deep animosity and hatred, antipathy towards the United States, that there will be an Arab support for a terrorist attack, and it will be a situation where the Americans find out about it and just stand down and let it happen. Unlike 9/11, this time they will just have to stand back and let it be done, because these are much more sophisticated fighters than they were before. They are capable of carrying it out today, not 15 years ago, but today this is a different world. And so those who want to get involved with Israel, who want to force the United States into war with Israel, will simply stand down and stand back and let the natural events play out, And the next thing you know, we're going to be in Tel Aviv defending the Israeli government. And we are going to get our butts kicked. And that is not a disparaging comment on the U.S. military. We're not going to have one nation fighting against us. We're going to have the entire Arab world, and it will be we are now aware of what a protracted war looks like. This will not be a 6-day war like in 1967. ISIS has declared they are already estimating that they can do this war and win against Israel over a 6-year period. And the CIA, during the Lebanese war, when Lebanon had a 15-year war against Israel, the CIA had forecast that if all the Arabs united together against Israel. Okay, now this was a special circumstance that that at the time was unforeseeable. That it seemed impossible that all these countries could what could ever unite them to fight against Israel? Because you have the governments which the United States controls, but it's the people who will fight, not the governments. The Jordanian government, the Syrian government will not battle against Israel. Maliki's government will not battle against Israel. Erdogan in Turkey will not battle against Israel. They will probably be horrified and say, no, don't attack us, don't fight, don't strike us, because we don't want anything to do with this. But it is the rebels, as you're seeing, the jihadis, who are streaming into this conflict zone from all over Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, pouring in. And this region-wide war will guaranteed result is targeting Israel even today. That's their objective. And all this, they're trying to take control of Iraq. They're trying to take control of Syria. Well, that's a stepping stone only. The real goal is Tel Aviv, and we should expect that that Jordan will fall. And when Jordan falls, that's the last straw. And how long will that take? 6 months to a year. And then a year from now, I predict that we will start to see a war with Israel. And I predict that very shortly thereafter, you'll see a major terrorist attack inside the United States, probably a miniature nuke, suitcase bomb, dirty bomb. I do not see a mushroom cloud in our future. I see a dirty bomb in our future. And a dirty bomb, we will survive it. There will be some radiation contamination. It will probably, I'm sure it will be targeted on Wall Street. It will definitely be targeted on New York City. I do not foresee a target in Chicago or Los Angeles. Too spread out, but New York is an icon city, and it's tightly compact, and it's a walking target. The southern part of Manhattan, even Midtown, has skyscrapers which would block the flow of the radiation. But in southern Manhattan, where the buildings are really low, the courthouse, the federal courthouse, we talked about these political cases, would be an ideal spot for a terrorist attack, for the next terrorist spot. And I'm not saying I'm not advocating for it, don't worry. I'm not saying, FBI, don't show up at my door. I'm not saying that they should do this, but I'm saying this is what's going to happen. And, because it won't be the Israelis who do it, but there will be people who let it happen, who withdraw, and the way that they let it happen is to and I'm not saying, and don't go off on 9/11. Say she's saying 9/11 was not I am not saying that 9/11 was not an inside job. This is a completely different terrorism case. These are now sophisticated people. These are not the 19 hijackers in a cave with box cutters who were actually trained by the CIA, who were taught to fly by the CIA, who were spending money and buying cocaine and going to strip joints and drinking alcohol. They were not. Obviously, Muhammad Atta was not a devout Muslim. These are. This is a different scenario, but. What I predict is that the neocons, the pro-Israeli Zionists who discover this conspiracy will stand down. It'll be like the JFK assassination. The Secret Service was removed from the Secret Service protocols were retracted at a critical point, pulling back so that the execution of the president could occur, the assassination, execution, the murder of the president could occur. They all knew what was going to happen. The things that would have stopped it, that would have protected it, the protocols were taken away. And then they said, oh, look, he's dead. Wow. And that's what's going to happen in New York. So I predict that within 12 months you'll see the start of a new war, where the real focus is targeted on Israel in the next 12 months, and within 18 months, maybe Christmas time, 2015, expect some kind of nuclear attack, a miniature dirty nuke attack on New York City, and then shortly thereafter we'll have it'll be heating up for the presidential race, and everyone will be saying we've got to support our ally. Everyone's going to want the AIPAC dollars for the presidential race, because they're all going to be desperate to get AIPAC support, and so we're going to have the Zionists fighting to get us into war, and then the anti-war community being, of course, we're always right. The truth community, we get our facts straight. We've got excellent researchers, really great researchers. We are not the conspiracy theorists that we're made out to be. We're the ones who are accurate. We are historically accurate in our tellings of these events, and we get it right, and we pay attention to those details. But that's how this is going to play out, and it's going to be very ugly. People do have power. We are not in a hopeless situation. Simply by standing up and refusing to be ignorant, by letting them know we're not fooled, that false flag operations won't work on us anymore, that we're not duped.
A colleague of mine, Barrett Brown, is currently locked in a cage facing a potential 100 years in prison for what I believe is an effort to silence him. And we're also seeing the administration go after whistleblowers.